The time of harvest should remind us of a guarantee. It should remind us of acceptance and remind us of a celebration that it is to get to know or to get to see the end of a season having trusted the process. After clearing and tilling and sowing and tending, harvest is the moment of greatest anticipation, the culmination of patience. In fact, the harvest of a specific time, right, when the crops are ready to go and they're ready to be gathered, for ancient Israel, one such harvest time was during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and while they were harvesting, they would celebrate two things really. First was their departure from Israel, and second was the long journey from Israel to the Promised Land. Those were the things that they recognized and they remembered during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So in other words, during this feast, what they would be reminded of is the long, arduous, slave-driven experience of their ancestors for over 400 years in Egypt. Yet, when the moment arose, the story goes, God calls this man Moses, and through Moses, God is able to deliver his people at the time in which their patience was due. And under the most strenuous of circumstances, upon the opportunity of God's call out of Egypt, they quickly embraced that without thinking about the repercussions or without thinking about what would come out of it. They embraced that and they go. And that's why during this particular Feast of Unleavened Bread, they eat unleavened bread because there was no time. There was no time to put yeast. There was no time to let the yeast do its thing and for everything to rise and then have this beautiful bread. No, there was no time. And so it's a Feast of Unleavened Bread because the time was now. There were no more patience needed to be done, no more process. No, the time was now. And so harvest, therefore, calls for a sense of anticipation. So imagine being one of those people, Israelites, for 400 years in Egypt, anticipating the coming of a liberator, right, in Moses. And now, the only way that I can give a vivid example of this is through sports. So forgive me if you're not a sports person, but when you think about anticipation in sports, the athlete, when they anticipate something, or a play is going to happen or whatever, it's not just knowledge. It's not just, I know that this is going to happen, but I was told to stand here. No, if you know the way that the pitch is coming, you're going to adjust your stance in order to hit the ball with the bat. If you know the way that the batter tends, or the direction that the batter tends to favor, you're going to stand in a way that favors you getting to the ball. If you know how someone, or the angle in which someone likes to spike the ball on the court, you're going to stand and be ready to counteract that play. If you know where the pass is going, you're not just going to see where it goes, but you're going to anticipate by moving your body and readjusting in order for you to get to the play first. There is movement, there is work, there is something done during the time of anticipation in sports. It's not anticipation as that I know what's coming, and no, anticipation requires movement. And so what is worth anticipating? In the feast, as they commemorate the journey to the Promised Land, memory serves to recall the stories of the spies who go into this new land and they spy it out. They're like, they're full of stuff, man. Like, this is a land of plenty. And we recall the promises of God to Israel of saying, like, I'm going to take you to a land flowing of milk and honey. You're going to reap the results of that which you did not sow. But the anticipation is the fact of we didn't do anything to actively sow that particular harvest, but we're going to get the harvest because what we did to sow that is to follow Jesus and to do and obey what Jesus has asked us to do. So what is worth anticipating? See, the harvest time should show the church the values of timing and maturity. A time of patience filled with anticipation, right? Filled with maturity to anticipate that we ought to move quickly at the time that God provides the opportunity. Right? When God provides the opportunity, when God provided the opportunity to Israel to leave Egypt, it wasn't a time to, let's think about it, let's meet, let's do this and that. No, it was a time to act. You have anticipated the harvest for so long that now when the harvest arrives, what the worker does is as soon as that harvest is ready, you're not going to wait because it might begin to rot. You're going to act quickly and you're going to reap the harvest. See, much like the message of Paul to the Thessalonians, which basically goes like this: patience does not promote idleness, but rather working in waiting, constantly in anticipation of the soon return of Jesus. Therefore, what it's basically saying is to remain busy in waiting. If we, the church, if we are the harvest that Jesus is returning for, then his arrival should inspire a commitment to do good. So in anticipation of Jesus' return, what are we doing? How well are we accepting? How much are we celebrating? Those are all questions for us to have during this season of harvest. Is where is God leading us to go now to act quickly? And let that be the way forward.